call this meeting in order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. All council members are present. We also have our agenda. This evening we had an amended agenda that was presented to you tonight. One being we are removing one action item, 7E, ordinance 739, and also adding 7M, approve appointment of EMT. Anything else, staff? That's it. Council have anything to add to the agenda?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Keith. Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Moving on to our minutes. We had 2 minutes in your packets, May 1st and May 6th. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented?
Under the May 1st meeting, on the first page, under the public open forum, where Andrea Kerfeld spoke about having input at the meeting, I think that should be reflected that that's the May 29th meeting. Somewhere in that, it doesn't state anything in there as far as what meeting she was talking about.
Okay. Any other additions or corrections to the minutes?
On the May 6th meeting, under the public appeals, down farther, it's just I think it's just a typo or a misspell of words where it says it is only a 2-stall garage. The lot is a bluff lot, or has a bluff. It says the lost is bluff. I think, that's the only other change that I've seen. So.
All right, thank you, Warren. Any other changes to the minutes? If not, I'm going to just ask a motion for each one since I was not here for the May 6th. So can I get a motion on to approve the May 1st minutes with that change?
So move.
Motion by Warren. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Could I also get a motion then on the May 6th, please?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Warren to approve the May 6th minutes with the change as noted. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Keith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstentions, aye. Motion carries. 4 in favor, none against, 1 abstention, and I was not here for that meeting. Thank you. At this time is our public open forum. Is there anybody here who wishes to address the council? Anybody wish to address the council? Third time. Anybody wish to address the council? Seeing none, we're going to move then into our public hearings. We actually have 2 public hearings this evening. And so we will, if staff is ready, we'll move into that. Yep, we'll close the regular meeting and we'll open up the first public hearing. We actually have 2 public hearings this evening, and we'll use the same format for both public hearings, but I'll go through that process with us. Again, there's a public hearing this evening for a request. Public hearing number 1 is to request for the vacation of a utility easement by Joel and Emily Dunn. It is our intention that everyone has the opportunity to be heard. If you wish to speak regarding this matter, please sign in on the sign-up sheet at the back of the room. When you approach the podium to speak, please state your name and address for the record. The procedure is as follows. Staff presentation followed by questions of staff. Applicant's presentation followed by questions of applicant. Public input. Questions for clarification by the public if needed. Obviously, the public in favor of the proposal and then public speaking against is the format that we use. After everyone who wishes to speak has had the opportunity to be heard, the hearing will be closed. After closure of the public hearing, the council will deliberate and take action as appropriate. Members of the audience do not participate in the council's discussion unless the majority of the council concedes to hear additional information or questions. This hearing is now in session. Staff.
Okay, this first public hearing is a hearing on the vacation of an easement. Joel and Emily Dunn on April 17th, 2013 did apply for a vacation of an easement. They purchased 2 properties and the easement is on the property line adjoining. We did make all the required publications and notifications as required by law. They are the owners of Lot 3 and 4, Block 1 of W.H. Cates Lake Ridge Addition. They propose to construct a home straddling the property line of the two properties, which will be bunched into one parcel. At the time of the platting of the property, there was a 5-foot utility easement along all the property lines in the plat, which would allow for the installation of utilities such as water, electric, cable TV, sewer, etc. This easement will not be needed due to the proposed home construction. I did attach a copy of the plat map and an aerial map, which illustrates the location of the easement requested to be vacated. As of the date of this publication, we've had no public comments have been received. If you look at the, I did do the both maps, so you can see how that lays out, and you can also see the utility easements that are on the lot. Generally, we like to run all the utilities down property lines, so this would have given enough room if there was two differing neighbors to get the utilities in there. But because it will be one parcel going forward, he's requesting that it be vacated.
Did you get any, you ready for
Any
questions?
questions?
Yeah, I have some questions. Did you get any input from the Public Utilities Commission in regards to, or either one of those two easements currently have any facilities or infrastructure?
All the utilities will come off of the road in the front, so they will not be needing that
They will
easement.
not be needing the 5 feet on either
Correct.
side, okay? Any other questions for staff? None? Hearing none, then we will move into the next phase. Is there any public input? Anybody here who wishes to speak in favor?
I've not received any comments as of this date.
All right. Joe, go ahead, Joe.
I'm Joel Dunn, 10377 Andrews Drive, Sauk Center, Minnesota, 56378?
Yeah.
Hey, I got it. Hoping to build a house, bought 2 lots together, and want to vacate the easement so I don't get a power line above me or a conduit underneath me.
Okay.
That's about it.
Any questions for the applicant? No? Thanks, Joe. With that, is there anybody here who wishes to speak in favor or against of this vacate? Anybody wish to speak in regards to this hearing? All right. Hearing none, does the council have any questions for anybody before I close this public hearing?
Is there an easement on the backside of this property?
There is. No, there's not.
No.
Well, Vicki?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
There's a-
There is?
Mhm.
We're not proposing to vacate either easement on the back property line or the front, just where the lots adjoin each other.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Okay.
With that, I'll close this public hearing, and we will then open up the second public hearing. I won't read through that format, but this particular public hearing is in regards to a request for a granting of a new liquor license to sell 3-2 beer and wine at 1314 Timber Lane Drive for Four Seas Incorporated. Vicki?
Four Seas Incorporated, they do business as Four Seas Buffet. As Brad said, they're located at 1314 Timber Lane Drive. They have requested a 3-2 beer and wine license at this location. Granting of the license would authorize the owner of the establishment, their intent is to serve sake, which is rice wine, as part of its menu, and that does fall under the 3-2 beer and wine license authority. If we do grant the license, they would allow to do 3-2 beer and wine, but their intent at this time is for sake. New liquor locations within the city require that a public hearing be held by the city council to hear comments regarding the proposal before the license can be granted. We did the legal advertisement that was published notifying the public that a public hearing is scheduled to be held. The request is that the license become effective commensurate with the next renewal of all the liquor licenses on July 1st, 2013. They have provided the city application, the public hearing fee, the certificate of insurance, the workers' compensation, and the annual license fee. We have completed a background check as well. I did put in your packet a copy of the notice, a copy of the license application, and right now the council, after the public hearing, you'd have action on this later on in the agenda.
Okay. Any questions for staff in regards to this public hearing and request for a 3-2 beer and wine license at Four Seas? None?
None.
All right. Is there anybody here from the public who wishes to speak on behalf of this public hearing? I see the applicant not here, so anybody wish to speak? And then we're going to, council has no further questions. I'll close this public hearing. We'll close the public hearing. We'll open up the regular scheduled meeting. Again, we'll take action on those two requests in our action items further in the agenda. Okay, moving on. Reports and presentations, the audit report. Mary?
Good evening. I'm Mary Reedy with Clifton Larson Allen, manager on the audit for 2012. I have already placed in front of you some graphs that just kind of walk through the year and some comparative for the city. We'll go ahead and take a look at those. I did meet with the Finance Committee before the council meeting, asked questions, had good discussion there. If at any time you have any questions, please feel free to step in and ask. This year's going to look a little different with the hospital transaction and everything, but I'll try and walk you through what happened on that. So if you start with that first graph, there's your the city's cash and investment balances. General fund, slight increase. And if you look to your right, all other governmental funds had a slight increase. Within this graph here, it's just your cash and investment balances. The city did not receive the cash from the hospital until after year end. So the hospital cash is not reflected in these numbers. The increase in the other governmental funds is due to some bond proceeds that have not been spent yet, that were issued in the current year. Okay. So then we'll flip to the next page. This is the city's fund balances as of the end of the year. You can see the general fund, consistent increase, same with the cash. Here you can see the significant increase in your fund balance. Within this fund balance is the amount received by the hospital, which is a new fund from the city to keep track of those ins and outs from sensor care going forward. The next one just kind of gives the city an overlay of comparative governmental revenues. So these are all the governmental funds combined. And if you look down at the bottom, they're broken out into categories. And then going down shows the colors in years. Those. You'll notice some significant differences, but I think it's easier if you flip to the next graph, and we'll go ahead and address some of those variances. This next graph shows a pie chart, and so on top is for the year ended in 2012, and then on the bottom is 2011. So a little bit more comparable numbers there. And the first thing to point out is property taxes, 1.9 million this year, 1.4 last year. This is actually the pilot money received from the hospital, approximately 400,000. Your other revenues from 388 this year and 229 last year. Insurance recovery proceeds from the storm of approximately 80,000 came in there. There's an insurance dividend of about 44,000, and then the hospital actually contributed 65,000 towards legal fees, and so it actually went into the other revenues category. Okay. And then the other significant increase is your charges for services, 1 million this year and 850,000 last year. 45,000 of that is from the storm utility fund, which was new and only partially implemented in 2012. So 2013, we'd expect another increase in that. 35,000 came from the hospital, and this is the state surcharge, which will increase again next year too as we do a full year of the implementation with the hospital. And then 70,000 of that actually came from planning and zoning. There were two big projects that were got permits, and then the storm also caused quite a few of the smaller ones, a little bit more than what the city normally has. Okay. I think that explains pretty much all of the significant variances in there. And then if you turn to the next graph, these are the expenditure side then, the expenses going out. And almost the same with the prior chart. You can see the variances here, but it's a little bit easier to explain when we go to the next graph. So again, on top is 2012, and then on the bottom is 2011. And these are your expenditure side. Capital outlay, 1.9 million compared to 380 last year. 1.2 million of that was the fourth street stormwater construction project, which is still currently ongoing. There's still bond proceeds that will be paying for some more of those. General government, there was the state surcharge from the hospital was $384,000 last year, or this year, and then last year there was just 1 month of that. So quite a significant change there. The airport went up $35,000, mostly due to some crack filling that needed to be done. And then the economic development, the city actually closed 3 of the TIF funds and turned that money over to the county. And then they'll redistribute that money between the city, county, and the school district. Okay, well, that was a quick walkthrough of that. In the Finance Committee, it was decided probably to walk the council through of what actually happened with the hospital and what came on the city side, what was loaned, and all of that information. If you have your financial statements with you, the book, does everybody have them? If you turn to page 25 and 26, get you a detailed breakout of what was coming in from the hospital transaction. So if you look on page 25, there's a form table in there. Marketable securities, which like I talked about, didn't come in until after year end, so it's included in accounts receivable, but it was 2.3 million. So that's the money, that's the cash that the city actually got from the split with Centricare in the hospital. Notes receivable of 6.8 million is termed their working capital loan from the city. So Centricare technically will owe that money back to the city at some point, eventually when they buy out the hospital from the city. Deferred charges, those are related to the debt that was brought on the books. Capital assets of 13 million. So those all came on to the city's books, and the city will continue to depreciate them and count them as city assets. They did not transfer to Centricare. They will at the time if Centricare decides to terminate. Accrued interest payable is on the debt that was acquired of the 9.4 million that's left on the hospital bonds. Okay. The 2.3 million of marketable securities at this time when the city signed the agreement with Centricare will be restricted monies. Those are to be used for hospital-related transactions only and will stay restricted until the time that either Centricare buys out or if the hospital needed extra funding. So in the financial statements right now, that is a restricted fund balance. And if you look at page 26, it just shows the difference of what St. Michael's reported coming over to the city and what the city actually received.
Very good. Anybody have any questions in regards to the Centricare transaction? You know, that was certainly, as you look throughout all of the financials for 2012, and one of the things the Finance Committee looked at obviously was, you know, why the big differentiator obviously was that hospital transaction. So you can see that throughout all of the report that you have here from the audits. So certainly, I think the one point that we've all had discussions about, even 3 years ago already when we started the initial discussion, was the restricted dollars and making sure that the funds that we received were set aside for hospital if ever need be for a period of time, meaning either one, they purchased it in fully or there was a need for the us to assist them in some type of funding. But that is restricted cash that we will not be utilizing for anything other than hospital this point in time. That's 2.3 million. Any other comments? Warren?
Just one thing, basically, on, if you compare 2011 to 2012, without all the hospital transactions, if you compare the 2 years together, basically the city is sitting at the same level they were in 2011, maybe a little bit better on the general fund side of it. So it's pretty much even. You know, we didn't go backwards, so.
That's correct. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? None? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, that'll be action item 7A to accept that audit report as we go further through our agenda. Moving on then to reports, presentations. 6B, CenterPoint Energy. Presentation, Jim, to the police department.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Jim Zelka. I'm a field supervisor for CenterPoint Energy, and Sauk Center is in my service territory, so I'm the lucky recipient to do a real fun part of my job, which is provide you a grant partnership check. CenterPoint has had this program now for about 10 years, and during that 10-year period of time, we've given away, this year will be our $1 millionth in contributions to communities. So it's actually been a very good program. It's been very easy for you. It's structured for police, fire, medical emergency services, and it's sort of a matching grant. You are able to select what you want, and we'll just, supply you with some of the funds. So I think it was a year ago or a couple years ago I was here, and I think the fire chief was the one that arm wrestled and won, so this year the police chief won. So with that, we've done about 560 projects in all the communities that we serve, and you will be receiving, or the chief will be receiving a check for $1,900 for a mobile, for a purchase of a mobile laptop computer for the police department. So we really appreciate, the communities that we serve participating. We have a common goal, which is, our customer safety and your citizen safety. So by partnering with police and fire and medical services, we serve a common goal. So thank you again, and I think the chief wants some more.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. The city definitely appreciates all that CenterPoint does.
Thank you. Good night.
Yep, thank you very much. All right, we're moving on. Brian, Police Department monthly report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Activity report for April 2013. Some of the numbers we had, 18 assists for other agencies. We had 11 driving after revocation / suspended license tickets. We had 10 marijuana arrests with drug paraphernalia and a small amount in motor vehicle and other small amounts. We had 1 fatal accident. We had 7 gun permits to purchase. We had 20 matter of informations, 14 medicals, 7 driving with no license at all, 17 public nuisance. Basically, those were warnings that we've been starting to give out to the community to try to clean up some of our yards in the community, get rid of some nuisance garbage and vehicles that are expired registration and no insurance. So that's what that is from. 17 suspicious activity calls, 6 thefts, and we had 4 unwanted person calls, and we had 259 verbal warnings. We had a total activity of 563 with 304 complaints and 259 verbal warnings. So that's pretty comparable. It's up, complaints are up a little bit, and the warnings were up slightly too, so starting to get busier. Otherwise, that's all I have.
Any questions for Brian? Just noticed that your April was the highest April you've had in the last 5 years. So
Yeah.
comparing month to month, it was a very busy month.
It was very busy, yep.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Moving on then to the Planning Commission report, Sarah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In your packet, you received a copy of the agenda from the Planning Commission meeting that was held just yesterday afternoon, and there will be 2 action items later on your agenda.
Just one.
Or, I'm sorry, just
one.
one action item, sorry about that. And then there was the building reports for April. And then we have on Friday and Saturday, I will have the scrap metal cleanup day. And then there's a list in there for Stearns County hazardous waste. That'll be June 15th out at Becker Sanitation. That's for hazardous waste such as paint, aerosols, fluorescent light bulbs. We have that information. We also have that information online. And then some Minnesota GTS workshops, and then a public hearing for the Stearns County water management.
Very good. Any questions for Sarah in regards to the planning and zoning report? None? Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Moving on then, Vicki, to the Park Board report.
Okay, the Park Board, they met Tuesday, May 7th in a regular session. Were introduced to the new campground attendant for the year, and also they're recommending approval of a co-campground attendant. That's an action item later. They did hear updates on the splash pad. They revisited the Baseball Association updates to the Tower View Field and then the concession stand at J.C. Park. They discussed updates to the campground restrooms and how they're going to get that accomplished with the late start to the season. They discussed alternative campground internet options. They did hear that the Sledding Hill property has been obtained, and so they want to be involved in the development of that. They discussed what will be their 2013 capital project. They do not have a recommendation on that at this time. And they did receive the campground rental update, which is up from last year. So we do have the one action item later on the agenda. Does anybody have any questions on any specific items?
Questions?
I've got a question. In regards to the splash pad, what was the update?
What the update was the committee had met and they saw several different schematics and designs with dollar signs attached to them, and then they kind of ranked what they would like to see in the initial phases of it. They looked at the overall layout of how ultimately, when it's completed, it would look like the entire multi-purpose park itself, but then they focused on the splash pad itself, which was what that committee was established for. So it was kind of a two-part meeting where first they looked at the entire multi-purpose plan, then they focused more on what they wanted to see in different phases, and then that went back to Stantec, and they'll come back with updated the design based on the recommendations of the committee.
And what was the multi-purpose? What did that extend to? What were we talking about with that?
The multi-purpose park, all the amenities and things that they would like to see in that park particularly is what they were discussing.
Within that area, not across into Sinclair Lewis Park?
No, within the multi-purpose park is what the Stantec agreement was for, and so that's what it was limited to.
Okay. In regards to the 2013 capital project, how is that being determined?
There's 3 projects, or 2 projects actually for 2013, in addition to the Tower View Park, that there was some updates to the baseball field for just the field work up there. Then they had also on the capital improvement plan a restroom at Browns Park, and then they had a restroom and shelter at Morning View Park. And so those were their options that they could to choose to work from. And so they're just asking us to come back to them with some budgeted numbers and some more precise numbers before they make a recommendation.
How does that relate to the master plan then, regards these 2 capital projects?
These 2 capital projects are things that were identified in the initial plan. That's something that needs to be done. And so as we've gone through the whole capital improvement planning for the park, they look back and they kind of broke it up, so like each park, they kind of spread it around, do something in each park every year, and it kind of goes on a rotating basis, and now these things have come back to finish up Browns Park and Morningview Park. So that's what their discussion is now. Whether either or both of them end up being the project that's selected, can't know yet. We don't know yet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Vicki. That was a great report. Moving on to the airport board report. Vicki.
The airport board met in a regular session on Wednesday, May 8th. They did discuss the MnDOT Aeronautics grant opportunity for the AD building. They finalized the fueling ladder purchase. We did talk about the Sinclair Lewis Days fly-in activities and where things could be located out there as far as parking and some of the things that are going to happen that day. They did review some airport obstructions, different things that are coming up, buildings, trees, poles, different things that are airport obstructions to the flight path. And then they actually, I guess the first part about the grant opportunity was whether they wanted to pursue that opportunity, and then the last part about the AD building was more detail on what kind of upgrades we wanted to talk about, carpet paint, tile, furniture, that type of thing. We're getting some quotes right now to send back to MnDOT Aeronautics to get finalization on whether or not that'll be funded. So it's kind of, there's no action for the airport board meeting tonight.
Any questions?
Just the AD building, the upgrade to it, would it include adding to or
No.
changing the physical size of it?
No, we are not looking at any changes to the physical size. We're looking at, that building was built 25 years ago, and it has the same carpet, same tile, same paint, same furniture, everything's the same. So we're just looking at giving it a facelift, making it more comfortable, more attractive, more usable.
It'll still be small though.
It'll still be small.
That's just my suggestion.
Any other questions in regards to the airport board? I know the next report, the MPEG report, will kind of follow up to that. So.
Okay. The next report is the MPEG, and that is the master plan. That's the group, the airport group advisory group. And we did have our second meeting of that advisory group yesterday here at City Hall, about a 2-hour meeting. This first part of the staff report was actually a preliminary meeting that we had with the FAA and MnDOT Aeronautics to just kind of get some agency concurrence on some of the forecasts. And then after we had that, the agency being the FAA and MnDOT Aeronautics, after we did that last Tuesday, or April 30th, I think it was, then we came yesterday and had our actual MPEG meeting. And kind of a synopsis of that meeting is they looked at the aviation forecast to decide whether those were reasonable projections using things such as user surveys, based aircraft, landings, takeoffs, the FAA forecast, the MnDOT Aeronautics projections. They used those things, and then the group talked about whether those forecasts were reasonable. Then based on that, they discussed what kinds of things could be facility needs, both airside and landside. They looked at what kind of alternatives they would have to what we have out there right now. They also looked at the development constraints, things that if we expand that airport, what does that mean to people farther down the line, and whether then that's, and then we also discussed what criteria they will use to evaluate those when they come back, looking at safety, performance, financial, and compatibility with the neighborhood. So that committee is moving right along. They're getting into the part now where we're going to be looking at actually types of things that could be done for improvements, what that would cost, what that would mean to the neighborhood, how much, and also how does that relate to safety as far as flight zones and those kinds of things, and then they'll come back with a recommendation, at which time the full city council, of course, will receive a report from them, and we'll make some future decisions on the airport itself. So I think they're taking it very seriously. We had good attendance at the meeting, and we'll see where it goes next.
Any questions? I think, Vicki, that's been a great exercise. We've had some tremendous people from all across the state and FAA as well. And I think it's good to know that we're going to have information brought back to the city that allow us to help us better plan both short-term and long-term for what the potential opportunities are for the use of the airport, whether we can expand it, whether it's currently at the size it can be, it should be based on location and the surrounding communities. So I know that's been a great project that we've been looking at for years. I hope it's going to help us as we do planning going forward. So thank you. All right, we'll move on to our action items. Action item 7A, Resolution 2013-26, accepting the audit report.
You just gave the report.
Is there any questions of staff? If none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2013-26, accepting the audited financial statement report for 2012?
So moved.
Motion by Keith, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, 1 against. Moving on to B, Resolution 2013-27, approving easement vacation.
The one thing I want to note about this resolution here is that if it is approved, then this will get actually recorded against the property at the county so that any future owners of that property will know that that easement has been vacated. So this is actually a legal recorded document that'll go to Stearns County.
Okay. Questions of staff? If none, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2013-27, approving the utility easement vacate?
So moved.
Motion by Warren, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, 1 against. Thank you. Moving on to C, Resolution 2013-28, approving the 3-2 beer and wine liquor license for 4 Cs Incorporated.
And I have nothing additional to add to
Nothing
that
to-
other than we had at the hearing.
Any questions? None. We had no comments, so I guess I'll call for a motion.
I just had one question. Sauk, where does that fall into? Is that a beer? Or
It's a wine.
It's a wine.
It is a wine?
It's rice wine.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions? I'll call. Anybody want to entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2013-28, approving the issuance of a 3-2 beer and wine liquor license to 4 Cs Incorporated at 1314 Timber Lane Drive?
So moved.
All right. Motion by Dave, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Dave, second by Keith. Any discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, 1 against. Moving on. Number D, Ordinance 738, approving amendment to zoning map. Vicki?
Leroy Mortz is the owner of property at 1010 10th Street South. It's currently zoned R1, which is residential 1 and 2 family. It abuts property zoned IC, which is industrial commercial. He's requesting his property be included in the IC zoning district, which would allow for the addition onto an existing building for warehouse storage purposes. I did include in your packet a copy of the existing and proposed zoning map for review. The copy didn't come out real well, but you can see the little square that's his parcel is currently light yellow. The property to the north of that is all the IC property, and then it goes up into the industrial park. So you can see how that lays out. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the request last night. They are recommending that it be approved. I think there was a couple questions about why we would rezone it rather than give a variance on it. Part of the issue is that we couldn't give a variance on something because the building would exceed the size that's allowed in a residential. And so if it's not allowed, you can't vary from it versus a variance from a lot line and that type of thing. So I think that was one question I had from 2 people, actually. And other than that, that was really the only questions that I've had. I don't know, Warren, if there were some additional questions at the Planning Commission meeting last night.
The one thing that we did point out to the property owner was that if it was zoned IC, they would not, whoever bought it or he ever decided to, that he wouldn't be able to build a house on it because it would be industrial commercial. So that was the only other point. And it was basically a legal non-conforming lot already. So by rezoning it to IC, we can take that off that list.
Yeah. I also did note that it's got industrial commercial on 2 sides of the current lot.
Right, so which removes it from the rule of spot zoning.
Right. Is there any other questions, staff? Any comments? And I'm assuming was there any opposition to this to the Planning and Zoning Commission prior to their?
No, there was no one to spoke in favor or against.
Okay. All right. With that, if there's no further discussions for staff, what's the wishes of the council? Is there a motion to approve ordinance 738, amending the zoning map?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Keith. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Warren. Is there any further discussion? Not? All right, I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Okay, we're moving on to number F, Resolution 2013-29, approving bid for 2013 mill and overlay project. Vicki?
At the City Council's meeting on April 17th, staff was directed to secure quotes for a mill and overlay on Center Street, Prospect Street, and High Street. Requests for quotes were advertised with courtesy copies of the requests mailed to local firms that we've done business with in the past. We opened the quotes on Thursday, May 9th. We received 9 of them. I do have the bid amounts listed for you there. The budget for the annual mill and overlay project is actually $100,000 due to favorable bidding numbers. And as you can see, the low bid was $74,164.16. We were recommending that the project be expanded by an additional 165 feet. It takes us all the way to the intersection at Railroad Avenue. The cost of that additional footage is $77,0715. The Operation Committee reviewed the proposal and they recommend that that project be extended and that the city enter into a contract with Riley Brothers to complete the work. The total cost of the project with that extension would be $81,871.31. We also did go out and look at some possible other areas we could extend because we are under budget, and we looked at some areas because it's a part of a block of length that we could do. It's kind of difficult to move that crew out to another area completely in the city to do that. So we don't have a recommendation to extend it because we're not in that area for extension other than a big extension or none at all. And then the other issue is we've had a couple things in the department with some expenses that weren't anticipated this year. So we feel that the $81,871.31 to complete that project is a good recommendation at this time.
Any questions of staff? I could say I was one of them that asked Vicki if we should do more because I thought the pricing was so favorable. I don't know that I've seen projects at this rate in a long, long time, and so I thought we should look. But as she did her research and talked with the staff, it certainly makes sense if we've got some unexpected expenses that we'll have to account for those somewhere. So maybe this is the place. So. With that, if there's no questions of staff, I'll call for a motion to adopt Resolution 2013-29, accepting the quote and ordering the improvements of the 2013 mill and overlay project.
So moved.
Motion by Keith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Warren. Any discussion? I'll call the motion, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Moving on to G, Resolution 2013-30, approving bid for plow truck.
Okay, we did open the bids for the proposed purchase of the plow truck and body for the street department. It would replace the 1994 plow truck. We operate those plow trucks on like a 20-year schedule. The bids were according to the state bid. The specifications are near as comparable as possible. There's a couple exceptions to that. Manian International is actually currently building a demo, which is spec'd a little higher. That is in there marked as the demo for you to look at. And also there is a Freightliner demo that has higher specifications, but that's already built. The one thing I wanted to note is that I-State Freightliner demo on your list there, the one right below it is if we did that 2012 demo in the 2014 with the exact same specifications, so you can see for some comparison, because it's a little more truck than we spec'd out otherwise. We also have the truck, Bert's Truck Equipment and Towmaster and Aspen Equipment. They bid on the body itself. Our trucks that we have right now are Towmaster equipment with Falls equipment on it, so that's comparable with what we have used in the past. The Operations Committee met, which is Johnson and Thomas, on May 9th, and they're recommending that the Freightliner demo with the Towmaster body be purchased for a total of $157,620. Now, I've had some comments from other council members of saying, oh, should we go with the demo or should we go with the new model? And so that's going to be something that's up for consideration with you here. The demo unit doesn't save us a lot of dollars on the truck part. It probably does more on the body. The reason the truck doesn't save us so much is because it has a bigger motor, it has a backup camera, and some of those things we didn't spec on our regular purchase. I do have Tom Johnson here from the street department. He can speak more specifically if you have questions on the vehicles themselves. It does fall within what we thought we were going to see when we went out for bid. If we buy a new truck, we'll probably we won't see it on the streets probably till after the first of the year. So kind of and that's fine. I mean, we're okay with that. But just so that you realize when we'd actually be spending these dollars would actually probably happen after the first of the year. Or we may pay for the chassis now and the body later. It just depends on their timing.
I have some questions. Tom, I have some questions for you. My first thought comes, and I'm sure this is something that the Operations Committee threw this around back and forth many times about 2012 demo versus a 2014 international for the exact same money. And so I have a little bit of a concern about that going, to a 2012 if I can buy a 2014 for actually less money than the 2012 demo. And I realize because it's got a camera and it's got a couple things different. But do we use international trucks today? Do we have international?
We got an international.
We got one international today, correct? And so,
we got two of them.
Okay, so if you were to compare the international to the Freightliner, give me why would you compare one versus the other? What's better than one or the other? And I'm just talking the truck now, because I look at this really as a truck and a body, okay? So there's two different things we're talking about.
Well, Freightliners we've never had before.
Okay.
Internationals we do have. The demo one that they do have has, like I said, the bigger motor and stuff in it. So it's set up more, it's got windows and locks, that's why it costs more. Or we wouldn't spec those in our other ones.
Okay. But as far as the internationals that we've been using have worked well, correct? And we have not used a Freightliner, you're stating?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
And the international we had, the day after the warranty went off it, and we didn't buy the extended warranty, the computer went out of it.
Right.
Cost us $1,000 right off the bat.
Yeah. Okay, then I have some questions about the body or the equipment, which is, I guess, just as much in this particular case as the truck. Identical if we were to go to the demo. Obviously, there's a difference between Bert's and Aspen, and then you got Towmaster, which is in between there. So it's my understanding that the Bert's truck equipment is a steel frame, and the Towmaster is an aluminum. Can you tell me the difference, why we'd recommend one versus the other? One's less money if we weren't to go with the demo.
Like your valve bodies and stuff that run hydraulics, Towmaster uses stainless steel,
Okay.
and Bert's is regular painted steel on all those.
Okay.
The corners of the box, the back hind corners, they're stainless on Towmasters. And Bert's uses a regular. The beds on the truck from Bert's is the hard steel in the bottom, but the sides is a regular, so that if you drop something in it, it will give. Towmasters are hard all the way up. And that's the reason they run more.
And I get from the discussions that I've had, Tom, with your team down there and with Vicki and others, that Towmaster is obviously your equipment of choice, just based on the reasons you've outlined there, and that you feel is the best for a new truck. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're closer for service. We call them and they come right here.
Okay. Okay. I think that answers my questions. I know we have, I'm really throwing and not able to make a sound decision, and I think I'm going to certainly open up to the group here about the 2012 versus the 2014, because when I look at this price difference, first of all, you know, the 2014 is even less money than what the 2012 demo is. The second thing would be is if I was to buy that 2012 Freightliner at the 2014 price, that's only $5,000. And to me, if you drive something off the lot, especially of a truck of this value and this dollar, and they're only giving you a $5,000 break in the cost, that's not much in my mind. And I'm thinking that number would have been closer to maybe $7,000 to $9,000 difference when it's 2 years. Okay, I could have seen it if it was one. So I have some thoughts, you know, some concerns on that. But I'm going to let the Operations Committee certainly share with us their thoughts, because they went through this, I know.
Yeah, and we kind of went through that, what's what. I know I was a little leery that we don't get much of a discount on a car that's essentially, our truck that's essentially 2 years old. But then it's had, what, 6,000 miles, as I recall? So it's a low mileage, and it's a new truck warranty that we get, so we haven't lost any of that.
Yeah, warranty doesn't start until the day we take the truck over. So.
What was that?
Warranty doesn't start until the day you take possession of the truck on
Yeah.
2012.
So some of that stuff carries over for us. You know, some of those special things we got, like electric locks, we kind of thought, well, that's pointless. But the backup camera seemed like that had definite value to us. A lot of the discount looks like it's attached to the body. You know, the Trollmaster demo discount on the body is considerable. Well, you probably can't get the demo body on a new truck. You're buying a new one, so.
You had actually seen this truck and tried it as well.
We plowed snow with it once this winter.
Yeah, some of those miles are ours.
So what, you guys felt that going with the 2012 Freightliner versus the 2014 International truck with those added options was kind of why you recommended the 12 versus the 14?
Yeah, the dollar discount, and you know, it's not like we plan on trading it in 5 years and that makes a difference to us. We're going to hold it till any, you know, depreciation cost is pretty much a wash anyway.
Okay.
You know, 20 years from now, the fact that it's 2 years older, so what, you know?
One of the things, I discussed with Vicki all the same things that everybody's brought up already. So I've got my answers on that. The one thing is that my concern is if when it comes to ever replacing it, the council at that time looks at it as a 2012, even though we bought it in 2013, they're going, oh, that thing's 20 years old when it actually isn't 20 years old.
Right, well, I think that's...
And that's one of those things
yeah.
that we need to, had concerns about when it come to replacing. You know, it might be jumping ahead of the gun a little bit on equipment changes, but, you know, that's minor. You know, none of us will probably be here when that happens anyway, but I mean...
Tom could explain it.
So basically, all my questions have been answered as far as 2012, 2014.
Any other questions? Tom, do you have anything that you would like to add in regards to either the truck or the body that we haven't talked about?
Not particularly.
No.
We like the demo. Frosty ran it most of the time. The one that they brought down here, and it's got, there's extra options they're going to fix because the sander only has a 6-inch auger in it, which is MnDOT uses for just pure salt, and we use sand. So they're going to change the auger for nothing on it. They're going to change the tower in the truck, so it's the same controls as the Internationals have in the same position, so operators can all run them the same.
Where is First State at? They were the ones who awarded that bid. Or, excuse me, not First, that's not.
Actually,
Inver Grove Heights. And that's the same case with the Boyer Motor in the cities as well? Mm-hmm. And because we're not referencing, Rogers, so we know it's not here. Huh?
Rogers, I think, is what Boyer is.
So both of these trucks are coming from Minneapolis. And Manny, is that over in Alexandria?
Mm-hmm.
Manny is an International, yeah.
Yep.
The one thing is with Freightliner, though, there is a Freightliner dealer in St. Cloud. St. Cloud Truck is a Freightliner dealer, and that's a lot closer than the cities when it comes to service and warranty. I know that.
Don't we have a Freightliner out here?
No, that's Kenworth.
All right. So, Tom, you're saying, let's get the demo and get it here and make it happen.
I would.
All right. Is there any other questions?
No.
All right. With that, is there a motion of the council? What's you folks wish? We're looking at a $157,000 investment.
Well, I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution 2013-30 approving the bid for the plow truck to go to I-State and to Towmaster.
To acquire the demo.
To acquire the demo on both.
All right. Got a motion by Warren. Do we got a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Warren and a second by Dave. Any further discussion?
Just one quick question. What did we budget for this?
We had 145 in the sinking fund and then 35,000 in the 2013 budget.
Okay, so we budgeted 180, okay.
So we're covered.
Any other questions? Again, my reservation is between the 12 and 14 and getting something 2 years older, but I certainly hear what folks are saying, so I support the recommendation of the committee as well as the staff. So. With that, if there's no other questions, I'll call the motion to approve Resolution 2013-30, approving the bid to purchase the Freightliner from I-State and Towmaster demo unit. Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. All right. Moving on to item H, Resolution 2013-31, approving the lease contract for copiers.
Our lease contract, we have 3 copiers. It has expired with Marco. We can continue the lease, the existing units at the same rate, or we can enter into a new lease for new equipment, or we can actually purchase equipment. Because it's anticipated the cost would be reduced, we did go out and seek quotes for new units under both a purchase or lease option. We had 5 companies that provided quotes, Marco, Coordinated Business Services, Viking Office, Chater, and Metro Sales. You do see the list of the model of the copier, the cost per pages, and the 5-year, 60-month lease. Right now, on, for example, the first one that's on there is Marco. It says the 5-year lease, and that total is $485 for a month. Right now, we're paying $777. So that's how much. Now, the $777 included a number of copies. So then and this one doesn't. So then I took that number of copies and went on cost per page. So it takes us to $523. So comparing apples to apples, we'll save $254 a month if we go with the new copiers. So the only things that are different about them really are the prices, because when we spec'd them out with the number of pages per minute, that they scan both sides, all the different kinds of things that copiers can do for you. So they are very much an apples to apples comparison. The price of the lease are very similar on some of them, but where we're going to save is in the cost per copy. When you really look, and then in that cost per copy, that becomes your maintenance contract, and that covers all the costs of your toner and your service calls. The service calls are included in that. So the only thing we really buy is paper and staples. The rest of it is all included in the contract. So the committee met, the operations committee met, and they are recommending the approval of the lease of the copiers with Marco. And there is no cost for them to come and take the old ones away. They come and make the switch out, hook it up into our system, and we're good to go.
Oh, and what would be the timing once we approve, if we approve this?
We were actually recommending starting on a July 1st lease because of our quarterly service contract with them. So it kind of makes sense to get it ready to go for the 1st of July.
All right. Okay. Any questions of staff? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt Resolution 2013-31 approving the lease for copiers with Marco?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Keith. Any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries, 5 in favor, none against. Moving on to action item I, resolution 2013-32, approving sale of excess vehicles.
Back on April 17th, the City Council approved advertising 3 vehicles for sale through the min bid, or the Department of Administration. The 2 vehicles were forfeited vehicles, and the third one was the old Ford Expedition that we're retiring when we bought out that last Ford Crown Victoria for the police department. You have an updated staff report and resolution on your desk tonight because the bids closed today. For the 2000 Chevrolet Silverado, the bid came in at $53.25, the 2002 Dodge Ram at $38.50, and the Ford Expedition of $24.75, for a total of $11,650. And so what we're asking for tonight is approval of the resolution allowing this sale.
Any questions? This was out online bidding, and we did have some minimums. Did all 3 vehicles reach the minimum amount?
2 exceeded the minimum, and 1 did not reach the minimum, but we did call them, and they've agreed to purchase it at their bid price, and it's Brian's recommendation that we do allow it to be sold.
Okay.
So the $38.50, that was actually had a minimum of $5,000, so we have $1,150. However, the Ford Expedition had a minimum of $1,000, and it went for $24.75, and the Chevy Silverado, I think, had a minimum of $2,500, and it went for $53.25. So,
Vicki, where do we, just a question, Brian, I should have asked this some time back. Where did we come up with the minimums? Did you contact somebody to get those numbers, or?
I usually go to a local car lot and inquire about the vehicle.
Okay, that's what. Very good. Any other questions of staff? None? All right, to move forward and approve the resolution 2013-32, approving the sale of excess city vehicles.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution.
Motion by Keith. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Warren. Any discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor. None against. Moving on to J, Resolution 2013-33, acknowledging purchase of vehicle. Vicki?
this is more of a housekeeping item. Back on February 6th, the council authorized the purchase of a 1-ton truck with a dump body and plow through the online bidding, or through the bidding process, and the council kind of set a cap of the purchase of $17,500. We had been monitoring that state bid system for some time since then, and now we have purchased a 2002 Ford F-350 with the dump body and plow for $12,175. And so to finalize that, the council should just acknowledge that we fell within the parameters that you set and provides for final authorization for the purchase. I do have that as Resolution 2013-33.
Any questions? Again, that price includes both the truck, the plow, and I think we're going to be changing the plow, right, and getting something
Right,
different.
we're upgrading the plow.
So that's included in there?
No, the plow cost would be an additional cost. I think it's at 25 plus tax is what was for the upgrade for the plow. 2,500 plus tax. So it still falls well under that 17.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any questions? Additional? Okay, is there then a motion to approve Resolution 2013-33, acknowledging the purchase of the 2002 Ford F-350?
I'll make that.
Motion by Warren, seconded by Keith?
Yep.
All right. Any discussion? Call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor and against. Okay, moving on. K, approve seasonal employment split campground attendant position.
On the April 3rd council meeting, the city council appointed Harold Reed as the 2013 campground attendant. His spouse, Patricia, will be assisting him in carrying out the duties at the campground, such as, doing some maintenance issues or doing reservations, etc. So the park board is recommending she be appointed as a co-attendant, and this way she's covered with workers' compensation and liability insurance. We've done this with previous campground attendant teams. The pay, we just split it half and half, and then they're both classified as employees for that reason. The Park Board at its meeting on May 7th are recommending that Patricia Reed be appointed as co-attendant for the campground for 2013.
Any questions?
Is this a 50-50 split, or is there a lead attendant on this?
It's a 50-50 split. Harold is the lead attendant. He is the one that was initially hired, and she's his assistant, but for the pay purposes, it's just split.
Okay, but I mean, as far as who's responsible, Harold's
He's the man.
He's the man. Okay, thanks.
That's a good question. Any other?
Are the benefits, are the compensation and the liability insurance, is liability insurance the same amount for one full-time as?
Yeah, it's based on wages paid.
Okay.
The other benefit is they stay in the same trailer. They get one site.
Any other questions?
Hell, that's a deal.
They'd have to pay extra for a tent.
They could.
All right, is there a motion to appoint Patricia Reed as a co-attendant for the campground for 2013?
So moved.
Motion by Warren, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Keith. Any further discussion? And I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5 in favor and none against. Okay, moving on to L, approve amendment to investment policy.
The transfer of funds from St. Michael's Hospital included the transfer of several certificates of deposit, 3 of which are held at the credit union here in Sauk Center. In order for the CDs to transfer, the credit union had to review our investment policy. They have a couple of recommendations from their board. They want the credit union to be listed as a type of institution eligible to receive investments by the city, from the city, and that the National Credit Union Administration be listed in the collateralization. Banks have FDIC, credit unions NCUA. And so you can see on the policy that I provided to you, the underlined items are the only changes to the investment policy that we are recommending at this time.
Okay. Any questions? Again, some more house cleaning things based on the Central Career transfer of ownership. Some of the funds were in the credit union that we've maintained for a period of time, so we need to get them, our bylaws to approve that. So. With that, is there a motion to approve amendment to the City of Sauk Center investment policy?
So moved.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Warren. Any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Moving on to M, approve appointment of EMT.
This was the one add to the agenda. I do have the request by Ambulance Director Kathy Strufik, excuse me, that Blaine Kostreba be appointed as a probationary EMT status. She's completed and passed the EMT classes, has successfully passed the skills testing and the National Registry test. And she's also been actively taking ride-along shifts throughout her training. And so it is with, it's Kathy Strufik's request that Blaine Kostreba be appointed as a probationary EMT status. And then as they work through the probation, it's number of times they go on calls and different things they have to complete. Then they'll be back here to be appointed as a regular EMT.
Very good. Any questions? It gets, we had 2 retirees at the last meeting, so this will fill one of them, I guess. That's great. Is there a motion to appoint Blaine Kostreba to probationary EMT status?
So moved.
Motion by Dave. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Keith. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. All right, we are going on through our agenda. Unfinished business, 8A, progress report for the 2012-13 stormwater project. Keith.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm sure as you probably noticed, there's a lot going on on the project this year. Things are actually going very rapidly. I do have a status report that you should have on your desk there. You might have got a chance to breeze through it, but I will go through it, especially for the behalf of the citizens listening. So, talk a little bit about Phase 1, which was last year's part of the project. All municipal utility work was installed last year. All of that's been tested and approved. The pond on the discharge of the stormwater is working quite well. We haven't seen, there's a little concern as it relates to buildup of grass and debris that might impact the fence that needed to be installed. It's too early in the season. There's not that kind of debris in the lawn, so we'll see what happens as we get into lawn mowing season and perhaps into fall leaf season, and we'll see how that goes. But so far, there hasn't been any issues thus far with that. You may have noticed there was a frost boil that developed right in the middle of the pond. And that disappeared once things warmed up a bit. I'm not sure exactly the dynamics of how that occurred, and so I say there might be a recurring phenomena that we might see again, but there doesn't seem to be any long-term impact. It just boiled up and went back down again. So I don't think there's any issues with that at all. But it was a little unexpected to see that occur. It might have just been to do with the specific weather conditions as well. That could have been a possibility. So I haven't really seen that in ponds, to be honest with you. I think that's the first time I've seen that occur, but it's a little different in a wetland, and there's high water content, and could have been the reason for that. You may recall from last year there was some sediment that was built up. If you recall, we put in the crossing on Ash Street, and that all got cleaned out. So that's all been cleaned out at this point. Any defective work on the project is actually, they're starting to work on some of that now. Things such as cracked sidewalks. There's one where there's some kids put their names in the sidewalk, and that's going to be buffed out or removed if it can't be buffed out. So those kinds of things are ongoing, and that's this week and into early next week. Final restoration, I actually have a specific date for the seeding that. They're coming in on May 23rd. And then the wear course paving on that section is scheduled for May 28th, so the day after Memorial Weekend there. The only real, in terms of budgetary, the only real substantive unexpected plan change was at the far east end of the project. There were some pipe conflicts in the sanitary, and we had to add an additional length of pipe in the manhole down there. It was real old stuff that was in there, and it got in the way of the 60-inch storm sewer, so we had to do some changes and replace that. And it cost about $16,000 to do that portion. Contract completion date for the final paving is not until July 14th, but that will be done well ahead of time. So the contract for that is well ahead of schedule for Phase 1. Moving into Phase 2, the municipal utility work is proceeding really quickly. They expect substantial completion on that actually by the end of next week, or maybe early at the following at the very latest. They're actually utilizing, really about 3 crews are out there working today, 2 doing services, 1 doing storm sewer. So a lot of things are happening. The good news with that is it makes things go faster. The bad news is it becomes a little more chaotic. There's just so much going on in a short period, but it is getting done quickly. Private utilities are moving ahead with relocations. They are staying ahead of the construction. For the most part, we've had very little issues there. 6-inch gas main at 5th and Main is being lowered. As we speak, they might still be out there potentially. It should be done probably Friday. That's expected to be finished. CenturyLink is ahead of schedule in moving their stuff. Once the storm sewer goes by going down Getty, you may notice there's kind of it's covered in a black plastic along the edge. That will actually then get buried following behind them out in the road. So that's so they'll follow along behind that. But they're doing pretty quickly. Doing a lot better than last year. They were very slow. This year they're at least twice as fast as what they were doing last year. So they're keeping up and not causing us any issues. We expect the street work then to follow behind. We expect that street work and the paving, up to the paving, I should say, to be completed by approximately June 21st. That's where that's going to be. The paving then, that first lift is expected probably about the first week of July. Restoration, seeding, then we'll follow that work. Seeding, typically, if it's too warm, we'll have to hold off, so we may end up doing a temporary and then come back in September and they do those final seedings. So we're going to have to see what the weather is like. If it's just too hot, that seed won't take in the middle of middle of summer. So we'll see where that turns out. So far, there's really been no, one came up today, but it's not substantive, a change for the plans. One thing we've learned today, we're going to have to run a storm sewer stub just south of Wobegon Trail out to the west into that one kind of area that's sort of being used as a parking lot, driveway area. It's a little low area, so we're going to run a little lead out there to pick that up. And I should have had that in the design. I just missed that area, so we'll put that in. That's probably $2,500 roughly for that. That's really the only thing that so far that's come up on phase 2. So that's pretty good overall. So overall, the budget's really looking good. The street lighting, I think there was someone I know had a question that was referred to me. I don't know the specifics on that. I know the utility has been working with Vicki a little bit on it. They've removed some lights. They're going to be coming back and putting in some more lights. So there's not going to be less lights than there were. Some of them might be moved around a little bit, but all that street line will be done. There'll be some new boulevards that down in kind of that Grove Lake area in that triangle in that area, and there'll be lights going in through there as well. So once that sidewalk and those things, or the curb gets done, they'll put some lights down through there. Don't have the exact schedule for them, but they're coordinated and make sure they're staying with the construction as well. The completion date actually on phase 2 isn't until October 25th. And obviously we'll be well ahead of that. So, and then the final wear course isn't scheduled until by June 13th of 2014. So overall things are going really well, budget-wise and construction-wise. We've had very little issues, residents, those kinds of things. Things seem to be going quite well, and they're doing well ahead of schedule. And the main reason is, and we knew they wanted to work fast. They wanted to get in and get out and move to some other job. So that's kind of worked to our favor, I think. So, is there any questions?
Keith, I have just a couple questions. One is, you mentioned that we would correct that issue down along Getty Street. I think you said about $2,500.
Yep.
Is that who picks up that cost?
Well, that would be part of the project cost.
Okay.
And we're well under, where we're at, so we're not going to be over with contingencies. We actually, at this point, I kind of anticipate with even those couple changes that we may be well within the actual contract cost, because certain items are a little bit under. We haven't utilized some, so I think we're doing really quite well on that. And it's something that probably should have been in there, so we would have paid for that. We should have probably had that lead in there when we did it in the first place. We have favorable costs to put it in for the contract.
Okay. And then just two other questions in regards to sidewalks. One is wondering if you have a chance, and if you don't, if you could take a look at the vault that was placed in the sidewalk to the east.
Yeah, I did look at that right there, Martha
Uller's in front of that place.
I've looked at that, and there's issues there. It's a little bit depressed through there. One, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to trap water and cause any issues. So actually today I went out and we put water in there. We dumped some water and see what things would do. And it actually doesn't hold. It holds about, maybe an 1/8 inch at the very most, right at the very lip of it, would be on the east edge of it. When we were putting that in, or that sidewalk in there, we looked at, should we have that radius on that side, be the west side, further back, but those vaults aren't made to be driven over. So we had to make sure that the radius was such that people aren't going to cut the corner and be driving over top of those vaults. That would have made that fit a little nicer, but as it is, it's depressed a little bit, but the drainage goes from west to east and goes right over it and through, so it's not going to be an ice issue or those types of things through there. So,
So you're saying as is the way it's going to stay?
You know, I guess I don't think it needs to be changed. If you feel strongly about it, you know, we certainly could have that area removed and have them bring up that vault and change it. You know, it's not causing, I guess, what I think is a real hazard through there, but if it's something that you feel strongly about, I'm more than happy to go to CenturyLinks, I believe, and go to them and have them, you know, they'll have to remove it up and we'll tear out a panel and redo that. It's probably just one panel, I think, maybe two to make it fit in. So, you know, if you feel...
When that was done, was there any consideration to move that to the west, just one section of concrete? I mean, I don't know if anybody has seen it, but I would ask at least the council before we recommend you do anything with it to take a look at it. But it's definitely, it appears to me to give us tremendous problems down the road. And I could be, you know, I mean, you're telling me today the water drain's fine, but when I look at that, I see nothing but a big dip in the sidewalk, and I just see it to be a long-term issue. So I think, you know, we'll want to definitely take a look at it and see what the options are. And I understand, you know, the utility companies want to put their vaults right back where they are, and there's certainly all sorts of different types of vaults, and it is unique because it's a kind of sloped down towards the alley.
Right.
So I know if there's no way of getting them to be able to move that one way or the other, which sometimes, a lot of times there is, but there's a lot of pushback not to, just because of simplicity.
Right.
So I think we've been there, but something for us to, I don't know that we'll want to completely close out on that discussion until the council's had a chance, the rest of them, to look at it. But I do think it's definitely a potential problem that we need to be aware and you need to be aware of.
Well, definitely an opportunity to go and address it. So if you want to take a look at it, we can talk about it at the next meeting, see what you're thinking on that, because even if the rest of the things are paved and that, we still have sidewalking on phase 2. So it can be, we can come back and redo a panel or two in there if need be. So
then the other last question I have on the sidewalks is, I noticed when all of the piping stormwater was put along, I guess it would be the south side of the library, we set all of that up on the sidewalk, up on top of the sidewalk. And I know when we did that along Sinclair Lewis on the other side, excuse me, not Sinclair Lewis, 4th Street on the other side, we actually cracked some sidewalk when we set those up on the sidewalk. Are we sure that that's not happening over here along the library now? Where that
along the library, and that's all being replaced on that side, you know, on the north side, correct? Okay. Yeah, all that's being replaced through there.
All right, so none of that sidewalk that's currently there is going to be
all that's removed. All the way from
that makes me feel much better.
From Oak to Main is all being replaced.
Okay. Then I'm not so much as concerned.
Yeah. Well, actually, up to the library coming from west to east is going to be, because it's a pretty wide sidewalk, we're going to narrow that up, make a boulevard, you know, against the road there, but then in front or adjacent to the library, we're going to keep that the same width as what it is now.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
That storm sewer stuff you were talking about, is that going to be sent to the west side of Getty, you said?
To the west side of
Getty. On the north side of the, or south side of the trail?
South side of the trail.
Okay, is that going to create a problem? Because I think that whole area is gravel on that side. Are we going to end up with a lot of sediment runoff and a lot of extra storm sewer cleaning because of that?
That's kind of downside, because that whole area is, you know, people drive through there and it's, you know, it's basically a little bit of a mud hole essentially through there. Especially when, right now it's fairly dry, but when you get some moisture, it gets a little nasty through there. You know, we'd put one of those beehive type, those mini stools, what we call them. That would be the type that would go in there, and it is subject. I mean, we would put, you know, a fiber roll around it for erosion control, but unless that area is seeded and grass through there, it's always going to have the potential for that dirt to get in there. And there really isn't a way around it other than that area being paved. Right. But yeah, I know there's other issues with that area that maybe could get addressed and how we go. But
it's just one of those things that I don't want to spend $2,500 on a stub over there and then end up having increased maintenance costs just because we stuck it in the middle of a mud hole.
Right. But you're recommending we stub it for...
Yeah, otherwise there's going to be a hole over there, so we're going to need to do it. It's a question of, should we just try and keep, for now at least, we'll keep erosion control around it, and we may end up just having to keep it there until something is done with that area in terms of restoration. We're going to restore the boulevard area, and Vicki and I were talking a little bit whether there needs to be a driveway through there, and there's some discussions whether that should occur or not. Currently, there's not a driveway plan for that. That was the discussion at the time, but whether we want to revisit that or not, that's probably something we need to do here in the near future and see if we want to make any changes to that area or not. There is one driveway plan, but it's really for that house, and that may slide north a little bit from where it is in the plan, but there isn't one currently planned for that access to those back storage yards, I guess you will call them.
When do you plan on putting that stub in there? Is that's going to happen relatively soon?
That would probably be something that will happen in the next, it'll be within the next week.
Okay.
Okay.
So you will visit with the contractors, look at that, obviously, to make sure that's, I agree with Warren. I'm a little concerned about investments and then just causing more trouble there is a real problem there with the gravel and whatnot.
Right.
I think it needs to get in. I think that's a secondary issue is what do we do with the restoration of the area beyond our right-of-way that we need to deal with.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Keith. That was a great update. All right, we're moving on to new business, 9A, appeal extension of Planning Commission decision. Walters.
Okay, we have kind of a two-part issue here from the Planning Commission. Actually, it's Troy Walter. He owns property up at 725 8th Street. It's right next to the water tower. His brother Tim has a communication tower at that address. It was constructed in 2004. Then during that summer storm of 2011, it went down, and they put it back up. And he did get an after-the-fact zoning permit for that. That was as soon as we notified him he should have had a permit, he came right in for it. We did have some neighborhood objection to that, and with maintaining that it was taller, it was the wrong color, it wasn't the same, that type of thing. And we did verify the height was actually shorter than the original one, but agreed that the tower was a red and white tower now versus the gray color that it was. The Planning Commission did visit with the Planning Commission, and the agreement was that he was going to paint that gray. Everything had to be done by the expiration of the zoning permit, which would have been September 2012, I believe, September 26th of 2012. Zoning permits are good for a year. That was not completed, and so the Planning Commission revisited it again in January of 2013, at which time they gave him till May 15th, which is actually today, to get the tower painted, and also had fined him $100 administrative or a fine for not getting the work done in time. I have in there that he's appealing that to the City Council, but technically what it is he's appealing the amount of the fine, and he's requesting a second extension of 90 days. So it's kind of a two-part thing. He's appealing the dollar amount of the fine, and he's requesting an extension of the time frame that he needs to get the tower painted. So those are really the two items that you need to look at. I know I had in there uphold or amend or overturn, but really the Planning Commission acted way back in January, so we're at the point now of it's a second extension actually that's what he's doing, and that's why it's in front of the City Council. If the staff grants an extension, the second one would go to Planning Commission. If Planning Commission grants an extension, the second one would go to City Council. So that's really, we need kind of some direction on both of those items. He is here tonight. If you have any questions for him about why he feels he needs the extension. And also then if he has any thoughts on the fine that they had established. Now the fine would be due as of today as well, because it had to be paid by the time of the expiration of the extension.
Thank you. I know Vicki and I spent some time on this, and I certainly have looked at it as well. And then first of all, I think we have to recognize that when Troy was made aware, or Tim was made aware that we needed a permit, one was obtained right away. And so that's something I think that needs to be recognized, and that was done in 2011. Again, the problem I have is we're talking from September of 2011 to now May of 2013, which is almost 20 months, you know, and you really look at the timeline. And it wasn't that we didn't know already in 2011 that it needed to be painted and it needed to be taken care of. So, you know, and I feel I have to support the Planning Commission's recommendation to uphold the administrative fee of $100. I guess Troy, or is it Tim or Troy? I'm not sure which.
Good.
Who wants to come up? Do you want to come up? Is it Troy or Tim? Tim. Is it Tim? Yeah, Tim. Thanks, Tim. My question would be, Tim, if we were to, you know, we're concerned about getting it painted, right? And that's part of the 90-day extension that you're requesting here. But we're going on such a long period of time since that first discussion about getting it painted. I mean, what assurance can you give us that this is going to get painted and going to get addressed? Can you give us a little bit of?
We have this financial issues that if I didn't want to put the money into painting it because he was in the process of maybe losing the place, so then it would have to come down. Because obviously the new, you know, if it was up for sale, it couldn't stand there anymore. And that came late last, or right before it was due. So that's kind of why I wanted to push it off. And then when they decided in January, obviously you can't paint when it's cold. And we just got the quick deed filed this last week. Finally got the bank to release everything, so, and the weather hasn't been cooperated at all this spring.
Okay. Does the council have any questions for Tim? Any specific questions?
No.
No.
And I guess the other thing would be is I'd like to put it all white. If you guys have any objection to that?
Well, I think it was specifically said to be painted gray, the color that it used to be.
Yeah, the planning commission stated gray basically because they didn't want a contrasting color, something that would stick out.
The house is white and white with white trim, and it's more or less, it looks so bulky and the red so faded is what.
Realistically, though, you could not put up another new tower in this area, the way it's zoned.
That's correct.
Right.
That's right. The tower was put up prior to
Zoning,
our.
and I didn't realize the wind actually didn't take it down, it bent it.
Okay.
So we replaced it, but I didn't know at the time that we even needed a permit to replace it, you know,
Right.
from the storm.
Right. But yes, Keith, you're right. The new ordinance would not allow a tower to be built
Right.
at this point anymore. That was not in place at the time it was originally put up.
What type of communication is it, ham radio? Or?
Does that, and then I get my internet from in town out to where I live.
Do you have a retransmit permit for that, for transmitting? Do you have?
Unlicensed frequency, low band.
Okay. Is any other questions? I think, you know, one, again, we are, you know, the planning and zoning has certainly addressed this more than once. And so what you're requesting tonight, obviously, is for this council to you're appealing what that, you know, request was and what specifically the administrative fee and the time. I truly believe that your intent is to paint it. I mean, especially now based on the current ownership of the home and the things that you had to get in place to get that done. So I believe you will. I will say that the Planning Commission recommended it gray. You'll have to paint it gray, otherwise you would have to come back and, you know, appeal that decision as well. So if it's gray,
Or, I don't know, was it gray or one color or?
It
Yeah.
Solid gray.
It's kind of a whitey.
Solid gray.
Yep, solid gray, and I think it is, obviously, it's so that it doesn't stand out, because already it's standing out based on its height. And if we were to keep it orange and white, I believe is what it is now, or red and white.
It's red and white or.
Yep,
kind of a
yep,
off
so
white.
the gray would be the color that would need to be painted. With that, I guess I'll ask for the additional comments of the council, or certainly a directive of the council. Troy, Tim, I don't have any more questions. If you have any more comments, you can certainly share them now. All right, thank you.
One question I have, Vicki, since they were talking possible selling of the property or not having the ownership of the property, would that tower have had to come down, or could it have stayed because it was existing?
Well, because it's existing, and the permit goes with the land,
Okay.
so it would stay with the land. I think his intent, if they didn't own the home, was to keep the tower for another purpose, but yeah,
Right, but it could have stayed on the property?
it could have.
Okay.
It's lawfully existing, non-conforming is what the terminology is for it.
Yep.
Right,
Because in 2004, when it was put up, we didn't have a tower ordinance.
okay. The planning commission's looked at this numerous times and have kept updates on it. My personal opinion is there's been plenty of time to do this. We've heard other reasons why it wasn't, from the house to the boom truck not working and not being able to, and it's, when you look at the last time the planning commission looked at it is January 10th of 2012, and we're already in May of 2013. There's plenty of warm months there to get this done. Even now, even since the zoning permit ended in September. The planning commission's opinion at the time was we needed to do something because it wasn't complied with, and to look the other way was kind of like saying we're only a token commission. We'll pass down the rules, but we're not going to enforce anything. And we felt we had to show that we do have some authority as a planning and zoning commission. With that, I'm going to make a motion that we uphold the planning commission's action of January 8th, 2013.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
I have a motion by Warren and seconded by Dave that we uphold the Planning and Zoning's Commission, or Planning and Zoning's decision to fine the administrative fee of $100 and require that the tower be painted by May 15th, or it'll be taken down. That's what their decision is.
Right.
So at this point, it means it was not, you're recommending that it be taken down?
Taken down, and the $100 fine paid.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Okay.
And we have some more discussion.
Yes. Yep. I'm curious about the situation with an appeal, because I know I was real concerned. This was a decision that was made in January. Today it expires, and today we have an appeal. Now, I came down to City Hall assuming that there would be some sort of a written appeal, and doesn't seem that there is anything. It seems like, I wanted to know what was being appealed. There's nothing down here. What do we have? We must have some sort of rules about appeals, and we'd allow them to be done, for eternity?
The appeal is of the administrative fine, and the rules are in the city code under the administrative penalty section that says how they can come before the city council for an appeal of the amount of the fine anytime before it's due. Because it was due by today, as long as he came in and requested an appeal of that fine by today, he complied with that. The second part is he's requesting an extension. And you request an extension before your permit expires, or in this case, it expired today if he requested it before. I do have it in writing in an email format. So I do have a written request to extend it for the 90 days on that side. So I think The one thing that's a little different here, they're not requesting that a variance be overturned or that a final decision was made. What they're really asking for is an appeal of an administrative penalty and an extension. So it's a little different than your typical appeal would be, or the type of appeal that you would have, put it that way.
Okay, I understand that part, but, okay, the extension of the permit is what you said was going to be required. Well, the permit expired in September.
No, you extended it till May 15th of today. You extended it till now. By granting them the extension, you
Okay.
extended it till now.
All right, I understand now. Okay.
My other thought would be, and I would concur on the administrative fee. I mean, I think, when our commission goes through all of this work and you look at all this history, I think the $100 administrative fee is warranted, and I think it should be paid. What I would ask or would like to consider would be rather than a 90-day, but a 30-day window to get that painted based on the ownership transaction of that home that just happened within the last week. And I think there's some right that somebody's not going to make those significant investments if there's a potential that it's going to come down or there's going to be a transfer of ownership. Had Tim and the new owner came in and said, well, nothing's changed, the same owner, I would feel differently. But because of that transaction of ownership, I believe they should be granted a 30 days to get it done. I don't believe 90 days is warranted. If they're truly going to get it done, they'll probably go out and get it done in the next week. But I think, I think we move forward with the administrative fee of the $100 and we grant them a 30-day extension. And if it ain't done, it comes down. Plain and simple, that would be my recommendation. And then we'd go through the steps that you would have to go through to require that to be removed. So that's my thoughts.
Seems fine, yeah.
But we do, again, this is a discussion. We have a motion on the floor and a second right now. So is there any additional discussion? Anybody? None? With that, I will call the motion. The current motion on the floor is that we move forward with the Planning Commission's recommendation to find the administrative fee of $100 and require that the tower be painted by May 15th or be taken down, resulting in being removed effective today. I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Aye.
Motion fails. 2 in favor, 3 against.
I will make a motion that we uphold the fine, will allow a 30-day extension to get the tower painted.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Dave to uphold the fine of $100 and to give 30 days to have a tower be painted. We have a motion by Dave, a seconded by Mike. Any further discussion? Again, I believe for clarification, it would be painted in gray, and if it's not painted within 30 days, it would be go through the process of being removed.
The process would be removed, yeah.
Okay. And that the fine is upheld and will be paid. Any other discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
Aye.
Motion carries. 3 in favor, 2 against. Thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda this evening. We have many things on our consent agenda, so I'm going to try and go through them slowly as everything is all listed together. So typically in these cases we don't have 13 things, but tonight we do. So I'm going to just kind of quickly go through them. Obviously, we have our schedule of claims for unpaid claims of $110,759.52 and paid claims of $35,654.91 for a total of $146,414.43. We also have our April checks, which our check number is 1837E through 1863E, as well as 033803 through 033893, and then also 3 payrolls, for a total of April checks of $245,550.05. We also have several resolutions. We have Resolution 2013-34, accepting contributions. Again, the contribution of $246.63 from the men's card playing group to be used for Sauk Center Senior Citizens Senior Center, and $25 from Robert and Jeanette Stansbury to be used for the Sauk Center Senior Center. Again, I want to acknowledge them and thank them for their contribution. It's just consistently they're making donations to help with the senior center. We also have a gambling application for exempt permit request from Holy Family School for a raffle on August 9th, 2013 at Holy Family School. We also have gambling application for exempt permit request from the Sauk Center Area Chamber of Commerce for a raffle on June 25th, 2013 at Midwest Machinery Company. We have an assembly permit request from Father James Stotts for a Corpus Christi procession to be held on June 2nd, 2013 at Our Lady of Angels Church. Expecting about 200 people to attend. The procession will be from Our Lady of Angels Church down Ash Street to St. Paul's Church and back down Birch. Every year we have our liquor license renewals up, and we do this typically by June 30th. To date, all of the applicants have appropriate paperwork completed and fees paid. Listed below are the liquor licenses and license numbers. And as you see, the Next Door Bar and Lounge, the Palmer House, Westside Liquor, American Legion, Sauk Center Country Club, Hartman's Moonshine Shop, River's Edge, Bear Trap, Mustang Bar, Red Carpet Bar, M&M's Corner, Walmart, JT's Pub, Palace Bar, and Palacio. Obviously, we also have the 3-2 beer license up for renewal, which again is done by June 30th. To date, all the applications have the appropriate paperwork completed and the fees also paid, and they are Jitters, Java, and Coburn's. We also have the cigarette license renewals that are up for renewal. Again, to date, all applicants have been appropriated paperwork complete and fee paid. They are the Next Door Bar, the Westside Liquor, the Moonshine Shop, Bear Trap, Mustang, M&M's, Coburn's, Fleet, Holiday Crayons, Casey's General Store, Isaac's North Star, Walmart, Truckers Inn, JT's, Gas Mart, Family Dollar, Palace Bar. Again, those are all the cigarette licenses. We also have a request from Jim Winters, representing the Legion, Post 67, submitted 3 temporary 3-2 on-sale beer license applications. The term for 2 days on July 19th and the 21st for Sinclair Lewis Days for DJ in the Park and the Water Show. A term of 5 days from July 31st through August 4th for the Stearns County Fair, and a term of 1 day on September 7th, 2013 for the Grillin' and Chillin'. Is there any questions in regards to the consent agenda as outlined? Vicki, do you have anything else to add?
Not tonight.
Not tonight, that's great. All right. With that, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Mike, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. Is there any discussion? I'll call the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 5 in favor, none against. Just a couple things here before we adjourn. One is we have the Stearns County Municipal League meeting, which was held on, it's going to be held on Tuesday, May 21st at 6:30 p.m. at Kimball. So that's where the next one is. If anybody's interested in attending, please visit with Vicki on that. And you have the minutes from the last one that was held on January 15th in St. Augusta. With that, we have some upcoming meetings scheduled that was on your agenda. The next meeting that we will all be together again is May 29th at 5 p.m. For our strategic planning meeting. And then again, we have all through June, we have another very busy month.
I have one additional thing, informational item, is that there will be a carp bow fishing tournament here on Sauk Lake on June 8th. And the Big Sauk Lake Water Association, of course, is involved in that, but they're getting their permits from Stearns County to be out on the lake, and they will be doing their weigh-in here in Sinclair Lewis Park and having a barbecue the night before. So there'll be some activity going on the lake that weekend. It'll be during the night. So we hope everybody doesn't call the police when they see these lights out on the lake overnight, because they start at 9 p.m. and they fish till 6 a.m.
Very good. All right. Thank you for that update. That being said, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Warren. Is there a second?
No, second.
Seconded by Keith. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.